Hello everyone, it's Mari here for Honeybee Stamps. I'm going to be creating today with the lovely Teatime Florals stamp and coordinating die set. This is such a sweet little set. I love the teapot, the floral images, and the sentiments are just awesome. I also love that there's a coordinating die set that cuts out all of these different images, including the sentiments. You can see the lovely sentiments that are included here and that the dies coordinate perfectly. I'm going to start off here with a piece of watercolor paper in my MISTI. I'm going to stamp out my images using a slow drying black ink. I'm stamping that out and then I'm going to add some clear embossing powder over top of the black ink. I'll take that to my heat tool and melt the embossing powder. And what that's going to do is it's going to leave a really nice ridge on my impression, on my image here. And I'm going to do some watercoloring with my Karin Markers today. So I'm just going to complete the melting process here with my heat tool and make sure that I have all of that powder melted. And now I'm going to go ahead and apply my pigment. I'm going to start off with my paper being dry. I'm going to go in directly with my marker. I'm going to add a little bit of the pigment with my Egyptian blue pen, and then I'm going to go in with my water pen and I'm going to activate that pigment. I'm just going to drag the color out into the white area, and it's going to be darkest where I laid down that ink and then lighter where I pull the ink out. And so in that way you can get a shadow and a lighter area all sort of like in one step or just in a couple of steps. So really, really easy to do. The Karin Markers are super easy to work with. I love using them to color. Now, the great thing about the water brush is that obviously the water is right there, so you don't have to keep going into a container of water. If you like a little bit more control, you may want to use a watercolor brush rather than a water pen. Totally up to you. They both work. They just work slightly differently. It's just a little bit of a different touch. Now I'm going in, I'm just going to complete the teapot. Again, I'm just going in around the outside edge of the pot to create the darkest color and then work the lighter color into the inside of the teapot to create that depth and dimension, just to kind of make it feel like the teapot is a little more dimensional and actually round and not a flat object. And you can just see here how nice and dark that Egyptian blue is on the edge and how easy it is to pull that color out. Now I'm working on some Ranger watercolor paper, and I did stamp the image on the smooth side rather than on the side that has the bumps. And in that way, it does allow you to stamp the image a little bit more easily than applying the stamped image to the side that has the texture. And I don't know, I just feel like that works a little bit better for this technique. So I'm just going to finish up my teapot here, just using that same technique, pulling that color out into the center. Every once in a while, I take the brush over to the paper towel and just make sure that I have the right amount of water coming out of the brush. Sometimes the brush gets a little bit dry, so I just give it a little bit of a squeeze and get a little bit more water coming out of through the tip. And wherever I feel like I need to darken it up on the edge, I can just go back in and add a little bit more color. And then that allows me to drag more pigment out into the center area of the project. If you find you have a little bit too much water on your image, you can always just take a little bit of paper towel and sop that up where you want there to be less pigment, and the paper towel will pick up the water and the pigment as well. Now I'm going to go into the florals and start coloring those. I'm going to use a little bit of cool Aqua here, and that's just going to be really, really gorgeous. I love this in contrast with the Egyptian blue. Now I did it wet on wet technique for this area. I used my watercolor brush, a regular watercolor brush, not the water pen, and I just added a little bit of water to the flower first and then added the color to the wet area with the Karin marker. And in that way, you can do the wet on wet technique. So here you can see I'm going in with clear water with my watercolor brush, putting some water down and then adding the pigment. So this is another way that you can use the pens. Now I'm going in with some lime green. And I'm also using a little bit of grass green on this project as well. So you can see the different colors being used here and how pretty they look. And you can definitely use, like I said, just a regular watercolor brush to pull the color out if you want, or you can use a water pen, as I have been in most cases for most of the different areas. So I'm just making sure I have a little bit of pigment in each one of those different leafy areas, and just trying to make sure that I'm differentiating the leaf from the flowers. And you can always go back and look at the line drawing if you need to on the stamp set, if you need to clarify which areas are leaf and which are petals. Now I'm going to also obviously color up the other flowers that are remaining. The flowers on the left, I'm going to use some orange red Karin marker. And I love that when you add a little bit more water, you can get a lighter pigment, which is pretty much standard, right, with any watercolor that you might use. So if I'm putting in a little bit more water here, the color is going to be a little bit lighter, and you'll see that when I blend this out, it does really wash out this color a little bit, but that's what I was going for. I wanted this to just be really nice and light and soft. Now this color here is the fire red Karin marker, and you can see that this is just a really nice contrast with the other colors that I've used. And again, using the wet on wet technique, I've gone in, added some water to the little areas, and then gone in here with the water pen and just pulling that out. And now I've got some turquoise, and I'm going to use a combination of turquoise and grass green on these last two leaf areas that I have. So I'm starting off with the turquoise, and then I'll go in and add a little bit of green as well, just to change up the color of these leaves so that all the leaves aren't the same color, just to add a little bit of contrast. But I also wanted to make sure that this color was going to complement the blues that I've already chosen, and obviously add in a little bit more green. So you can just see how gorgeous that is, the green and blue together. Just going to blend them together with my water pen. And the really great thing about having done the heat embossing is those heat embossed areas really contain all of that water, which is great. Now this is a hot foil plate. This is the Fanciful A2 hot foil plate. I did not use it as a foil plate. I used it as an embossing plate. So I ran it through my die cutting machine with a piece of paper using my embossing sandwich as recommended with my Gemini Junior. It just adds some beautiful texture to my paper. I'm going to use that as a base for these gorgeous different pieces I have die cut now. Before I add them to my card, I'm just doing a really quick splatter. This is some Dina Wakley gloss spray. I've just poured it out onto my mat, and I'm using a fan brush to add a little bit of white splatter to my images. I just like this look. I think it just really adds a nice little bit of extra texture and dimension to the project. So I have this in my splat box. I'm just splattering away. And those images are now dry and ready to add to my project. I'm going to take that that card front that I ran through my embossing or through my plates with as an embossing folder using that foil plate. And I'm going to put a little bit of foam adhesive on the back to give a little bit of extra dimension to that piece as well. I'll add that to my A2 size card base. And now I'm ready to add my details with my lovely Teatime floral embellishing pieces that I created that I've watercolored here. So I'm going to pop those all up on some foam adhesive. You can see how pretty these little florals are inside or over the teapot to make them look like the teapot is actually a little vase for the florals. And I love the color combination. I think it's really super pretty. I've also colored and die cut out the extra flower that's part of this stamp set. And this extra flower layers beautifully over top of these others. You could also put it down on next to the teapot, sort of at the base of the teapot, whatever you would like. I colored it with the Egyptian blue, and I just thought it looked really pretty layered over top. I've chosen this sentiment here from the sentiments from the Teatime Florals. I have stamped that out with some black ink and die cut that. And I'm just going to place that onto the teapot right where you can see it here. I was looking at it and I thought I really would like a little bit more sparkle and shine on my project. So I'm going to take my gold stickles and I'm just going to dab a few little areas really lightly. This is just a really light application of some sparkle. And it's just going to add a little bit of extra sparkle and shine to my project. I really like how this looks. I love this set. I think it's so fun. It's really different. I love that there's coordinating dies so that you can die cut all of these pieces, but you could use the stamp flat as well with a one layer card. So many options with this set. I think it's really sweet and it's really different and unique. I am so happy with how this turned out. I hope you guys enjoyed. All of the products I've used are linked in the description box below. Have an amazing day, friends. Stay safe, stay well, and I'll see you again. Bye-bye.